when you're having a conversation with a woman where there might be some sexual interest on both sides, there's actually two conversations happening at the same time. One that's very overt and socially acceptable for the environment that you're in, and another that is very deviant, very sexual, and a conversation that's happening between your unconscious and instinctual minds. I'm Paul, apexmindset.net to book a consultation. Like the video, share the video, watch till the end because it helps me. Okay. YouTube doesn't always like what I'd have to talk about. So we're going to talk about the dual conversation. All right. So there are two conversations happening at the same time, really, when you're talking to anybody. But since we're talking about seduction today, I'm really referring to when you're talking to a woman and there's a seductive element that's there. The conversation that you're having when you're having with a woman is you're focused, of course, on the logical part of that conversation, right? What you're going to say, how you're going to say it. Oh, hey, have you been here before? Or how do you know my friend? Or whatever conversation you're having. And of course, I've gone through in other videos what to talk about, different topics to talk about in order to engage a woman in a conversation and find something that's interesting to her and relevant to her, and where you could spark that curiosity and investment through that conversation. And so we've talked about that in some other videos. So you're having that overt or conscious surface level conversation. But covertly or unconsciously, there's another conversation that's happening. Okay. And so that conversation is really her instinctual brain and your instinctual brain more or less making a connection. Okay. I say connection. I don't mean that in some weird spiritual hocus pocus stuff sense. Okay. It's just that we're social animals and we have different parts of our brain and we're designed to connect with each other socially. Right. And so we have an instinctual part of our brains that is designed to make mating decisions. And that's the part of our brains that is having this other communication, this covert, unconscious conversation. That's where she's making a decision as to whether or not you're bangable, right? Whether or not you're a good genetic option for sex. And, it doesn't matter what your goals are. Your goals could be marriage and relationship goals and stuff. That's fine. But the instinctual brain is determining, hey, is this person a good mating option for me? Or is this person not a good mating option for me? Now, of course, as a man, most women are all mating options. Okay. For us dudes, we see every woman as a mating option unless we use our human brain in order to compartmentalize that and put them in a category of not a mating option. All right. There's very few circumstances like, let's say, parents or, elderly or incapable or something where our instincts as men are going to tell us don't mate with that. Right? That female friend that your human side wouldn't want to have sex with because you grew up with her. She's like your sister. I mean, some of you guys have that, that are listening. Some of you guys have that female friend that you definitely wouldn't have sex with. I certainly have female friends like that. But I realize, though, that as a man, that female friend is someone that my logical human brain says that she belongs in a different category. Okay, so my instinctual brain, however, as a man, doesn't care. My instinctual brain will have sex with anything with a vagina that'll spit a baby out under just about any circumstances. But women operate differently. Women operate on an instinctual level where they're more selective instinctually for mates because they can only bear so many children. And they need to reserve those options for the most genetically viable. They need to be selective and pick the most genetically viable guys in order to have sex with during that ovulation cycle. So women are designed to be more selective. It's not that women aren't promiscuous. They're just more selective with who they're promiscuous with. And so her instinctual brain, when you're having this conversation, is having another covert conversation or communication with you where she is deciding whether or not you are attractive or mateable. Now, another part of that, of course, is her experiential triggers, or what we could call the unconscious mind in psychoanalytics. All right, these are her bags of experiences that developed over time as she was emotionally and mentally maturing. She has a bag of experiences that she associates with attractiveness or sex, or that she associates with not being attracted or not wanting to have sex with that person. Okay, so her experiential triggers will play a heavy role in this as to whether or not she is drawn to you or not. Her experiences and her experiential triggers, or that unconscious mind, we could call it, plus that instinctual side of her, that instinctual response, both of those combined together is happening covertly and unconsciously, and it's having a communication with you. Now, that communication is, again, covert, but it's illustrated in tone of voice. It's illustrated in how you're saying things. It's illustrated in your body language, your proximity to her, and how your body is aligned in comparison to how her body is aligned to you. Her impressions of you, your physical characteristics, all of these things are playing a role. The words that are being said, oh, where do you work? And that's fun. And, well, what made you decide to go do that? Or, are you familiar with the area? Or are you new in town? Those conversational pieces that you're connecting with are just the words. And those words are important, of course, but they're only one element, and that's the human brain making the connection. But that instinctual, seductive, sexual brain, okay, if you want to call it that, is under the surface making a different connection. All right. So you can have a normal, covert conversation with a woman and yet connect with her on a very deep sexual level, just through the tone of your voice and your body language. Now, sometimes the covert conversation, if it's going in a sensual direction, well, actually, if it's going in any direction, but we'll talk about it in terms of seduction. If it's going in that seductive direction, the words can sometimes pop their head up into the overt conversation. Those are your dual meaning words. You could say double entendre, or your little flirty statements, or your sexual banter that she gives off too, and that you give in return. Those words that are being exchanged that allude to the imagination, that allude to seduction, that allude to sex. Those words are the covert, representing that covert conversation, popping its head up into the conscious overt conversation. So I'm going to look at a video clip. I will put the link in the description from where the clip came from. It's a movie clip. I'm not sure how YouTube works with rights and stuff like that, but I mean, this is a active video on YouTube, so I assume that it's okay if I link it. We'll find out. So I'm going to put this. We're going to give this a shot and see how this goes, okay? Because I want to show you an example, and we can look at movie examples for some of these things, because although they're actors and actresses, they are certainly playing the role of two people having sexual tension, and we can see how that plays itself off. I'm going to show a short clip here from the Thomas Crown Affair, all right? The Thomas Crown Affair had Steve McQueen in it, and it's one of my favorite films, one of my favorite old movies that isn't an action film, and it's a good one if you want to observe how men and women, act when they're acting like men and women, actually. Okay, his character is very alpha in this, but it's not like that alpha who's like, kicking ass and taking names, that kind of alpha, right? He's not your Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson throwing people through windows and stuff in a movie in this. He's not that kind of an alpha. He's socially calibrated, high status alpha. It's really interesting to watch him portray this role. And it's really interesting to watch how Faye Dunaway portrays her role as a feminine, strong character in this. It's very interesting. But what we're going to observe here is a dual conversation happening and demonstrated between these two. So let's check it out and see how this works.
Sort of an American type headhunter.
You could put it that way, yes.
And whose head are you after?
Yours.
Mine.
Yours.
You know, you practically said I had something to do with the...
No, I said it. Not just practically.
Just exactly what have you got?
Can't tell you. Spoil the fun. Yours, mine. You're finding out just what I've got.
What a funny, dirty little line.
It's a funny, dirty little job. So shoot me in the leg.
Always get your man?
Of course.
Think you'll get me?
I hope so.
Okay, so you could see in that scene what's happening is she's an insurance investigator and she is after him for insurance fraud plus bank robbery of his own banks. There's a lot of cool little techniques in terms of game that you can see him demonstrating there. Like when she accuses him initially and he laughs at her and then they end up at dinner together, right? So amused mastery, outcome independence, right? He demonstrates that the entire time with women in this film. It's really a good one to watch if you want to observe male-female dynamics and how to act around women, right? But she is basically telling him that she's going to catch him in a major crime that's going to put him into prison. And he just plays along with it. Very confident, very outcome independent about the whole thing, right? And seducing her all at the same time. Now you can see with his tone of voice and his body language and how he kind of handles her and leads her into the chair. They sit down, he lights the cigarette, right? Notice how he lights the cigarette for her. It's not like a beta male lighting a cigarette to trying to placate to some girl. You know, there's a certain quality to it. There's a leading element to it, right? And so he's leading her with conversations and the questions and his tone of voice. His tone of voice hits that instinctual part of her brain. And then you can see parts of the seductive conversation rearing its head into the overt conscious conversation about her wanting to catch him as a potential criminal. You know, when he says, oh, what a dirty little mind or whatever, right? I mean, there's a double entendre there. And then, do you always get your man? You know, do you think you'll get me? So you can see that there's dual meaning there. Do you think you get me? What could that mean? That could mean sexually, right? Or that could mean something else. And so he's having this seductive conversation with her. He's using his tone of voice, his body language to do so. He's using his internal frame and his attitude in order to demonstrate that, right? And that's all demonstrating and having that seductive conversation where overtly they're just talking about something more, you could say socially acceptable and a little less sexual in component. So that's a great demonstration. There's a lot of different little clips like that. Hopefully YouTube will allow me to keep it here with me citing the source and everything. We'll see how it goes. But you can see how that works, right? So that's something you need to be aware of. And I'm not going to make this video too long. I just want to show you that and demonstrate that because there's a lot more that needs to happen with your tonality, your body language, and the words you're using in the type of language you're using, as well as the context of everything, how you're presenting yourself to a woman. There's a lot going on covertly in this conversation, whether you're aware of it or not. So it's time to become aware of these things. This isn't just for seduction, but this is with any interaction with another human being, actually. Now, of course, if you're talking to a friend or a business partner, you're not trying to seduce that person, but covertly there is a instinctual and unconscious conversation happening. All right, there always is. But no matter what you say overtly to a woman, that underlying conversation, if she is not seduced by you and desiring you on an instinctual and unconscious level, the overt part of the conversation won't matter. Your pickup lines, the way you're connecting with her and the right types of questions and all that stuff, like that stuff doesn't matter if her mind is not being seduced through those unconscious attraction triggers and those instinctual attraction triggers. If you're not hitting those attraction triggers for her, right, or she ends up genuinely desiring you. Now understand, a lot of these things you will either hit or miss automatically just based on you showing up, because humans are designed to be attracted to each other or not, right? So your sexual market value and how you show up will automatically start hitting these unconscious triggers and these instinctual triggers. But it's a question of, are you going to hit those triggers in a way where she is desiring you and growing more in desire? Or are you going to hit those triggers in a way where she is seeing you as not a good mating option? That's the real question. And so when you understand that there's a dual conversation happening, what you can do is you can start to become more attractive with this secondary conversation. That's going to get you the results, hands down, all the time, what you want. If you have seduced her mind through hitting those triggers and those instinctual drives, you're going to get her in the bedroom and wanting you and desiring you every single time.